Hey booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. I am filming this actually on, and there's a cat here too. Blue is present. This morning, it's probably like the third or fourth time in the last week that Jason and I have woken up and there is still tennis going on in Australia, which means the night matches have been running into like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you're not familiar with tennis, there's 4 really big tennis tournaments a year. The Grand Slams, Australian Open, Roland Garros, or the French Open, the Championships, which is Wimbledon, and the US Open. And so Australia kind of kicks off the tennis year. And usually we're not able to see very much of it. And the past couple of years, we haven't been able to see any of it. But the Australian Open is just particularly challenging because of the time difference. So, I mean, we're watching it at 6:30 in the morning, whereas it's like, 2 o'clock in the morning there. Anyway, so we get to see the end of a great women's match this morning, and it just made me think about some tennis books that I have read that I wanted to share with you. There are tons of not only nonfiction but also fiction books that have to do with tennis. I think even Agatha Christie has a tennis related mystery. If I can remember the title of it, I'll put it down here below. But David Foster Wallace, I guess Infinite Jest, which I have not read. For a variety of reasons. Infinite Jest has a lot to do with tennis. And David Foster Wallace also wrote a novel called String Theory. That again, like the cover is tennis related. But I just wanted to share a few books with you. There's so many tennis books that I would really like to read, but a few that I have read. So we'll start with those. And the first one is Hardcourt Confidential, Tales from 20 Years in the Pro Tennis Trenches. And this is by Patrick McEnroe, and he is younger brother to super controversial John McEnroe. My mother still hasn't forgiven John McEnroe for his behavior on the court when he was playing. They both retired long ago, but Patrick McEnroe is often a commentator for ESPN, and I think he does an excellent job. I really enjoy Patrick McEnroe, Brad Gilbert, and Darren Cahill in terms of commentators. Patrick McEnroe's book is just kind of a little bit of a behind the scenes look at some of the things that you don't often get to experience when you're watching just tennis matches on TV. Which also reminds me, there is an excellent documentary right now on Netflix. The first half of it is on Netflix right now, called Breakpoint. And again, really showing you scenes that normally you would never have the opportunity to see, like players talking to their coaches after a match, or Rafael Nadal like getting ready for a match in front of the other player, and the other player is just like on their headphones, like moving around slightly, and Nadal's like running up and down the hallways and jumping up in the air. And you can tell like Nadal is already like getting into like the headspace of some of these players. So anyway, Hardcourt Confidential was good. I think I gave it maybe 4 stars. So yeah, it was fun. And it's not, I mean, there's a lot of books out there about like playing tennis and, how to win more in tennis and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of biographies, many of which I want to read, and I'll talk about those soon. But, yeah, so, and then historical books about tennis. So one of the ones that I read a while ago, and unfortunately I don't remember it very well, so I probably need to reread it and talk to you guys about it. It's called A Terrible Splendor by Marshall John Fisher. The subtitle is Three Extraordinary Men, A World Posed for War, and the Greatest Tennis Match Ever Played. So pretty, like suck me in kind of book. Like I said, I've read this, but it's been a long time, so I don't remember it very well. The back of it says, on the eve of World War II, with the Nazi flag fluttering over Wimbledon's center court, America's tennis champion took on Germany's. One man played for his country, while the other, hounded by the Gestapo, played for his life. A third, perhaps the greatest player of them all, saw his own double life reflected in the contest. And I can't remember who the third player is. But anyway, so yeah, so I enjoyed this, but I gave it 4 stars, but I need to read it again. And I did discover, just in preparing for this video, another book called Love Game, A History of Tennis, From Victorian Palestine to Global Phenomenon, and that was by Elizabeth Wilson. So definitely adding that one to my TBR because that sounds really interesting. Now, there's tons of biographies and autobiographies about tennis players. I would really love to read Arthur Ashe's memoir, which I believe is called Days of Grace. There's a biography of Althea Gibson, and these are, you know, all of these players really changed the history and the trajectory of tennis. And Billie Jean King, I think there's a couple different biographies out there about her. So I'd really like to read that. And of course, Billie Jean King, there is there's a book called A Necessary Spectacle, Billie Jean King, Bobby Riggs, and the Tennis Match That Leveled the Game by Selena Roberts. And A Necessary Spectacle, you might have, so Billie Jean King plays Bobby Riggs because Bobby Riggs is, you know, a loud mouth and is always saying like, you know, no woman could beat a man on the tennis courts. This was made into a film you might have seen called Battle of the Sexes. So, and I did enjoy the film, but I have not. I'd like to read a book about it as well. Know a little bit more about it. But another biography that I really want to read, and it's been hard for me not to start it during the Australian Open, and that is The Master, The Long Run and Beautiful Game of Roger Federer. Roger Federer is, even though he's retired now, is my favorite tennis player of all time. And I just, I'm one of you wonderful people sent this to Jason, but I'm sure that I am going to get to it first. Yeah, Roger Federer he's just classy, you know, just a classy guy. And he was the first player that I watched that I really felt like the way he moved was just so graceful. And yeah, it was beautiful. Tennis was beautiful. And I still feel that way about, you know, in general watching tennis, but there was something special about the way he played. So anyway, I've spent many hours watching Roger Federer play tennis, and I do have on my Montreal t-shirt. So Jason and I took a trip, obviously pre-COVID, to Montreal for the Rogers Cup, and we stayed in the same hotel as some of the players. We took a bus to the tennis courts, which I'm so, like, it was such a smart move to just do this like package deal kind of thing. And we just gorged ourselves on basically tennis and books. So when we weren't actually at the tennis court and tennis was taking place, or the tennis, I shouldn't say court, like it's a whole series of courts, obviously. But yeah, when we weren't out there and tennis was going on, we were watching it in our hotel room. It took us several days before we realized there was actually a channel where they would talk about the match in English. We were watching the French one for a long time. But yeah, it was great fun, and I got to see. I mean, talk about greats. I got to see Rafael Nadal. I got to see Novak play, and I got to see Andy Murray play. And actually, Andy Murray warmed up on the biggest court in that tennis complex. And even though we didn't have seats on the lower ground, I kind of snuck up there, and this woman who was, supposed to be protecting anyone from getting in or sitting down or whatever, she's like, there's no match on right now. And I was like, I know, but I just kind of want to just see Andy Murray. I'll be quiet, and so she let Jason and I like just kind of sneak in a little bit, and we weren't in there for very long, but watched Andy Murray warm up, and it was definitely the closest. Well, actually not the closest I've been to a tennis player, because there were also the practice grounds, and yeah, so we saw Tsonga, and oh man, like just we saw a lot of great tennis players. Roger, I would have given all of those people up if Roger had just been there. So I still hope at some point in my life I will get to see Roger Federer play in person. But another tennis player that over time I really came to love is Andre Agassi, and he has a fantastic biography called Open, and this was written by, I mean, it's from Agassi's perspective, but his ghostwriter is also the guy who wrote The Tender Bar. So it's not just a great sports biography, it's just a great biography. If you're looking for something to read during the US Open this year, I would highly, highly recommend it. And I really remember Agassi's last US Open, and it was just, it was crazy. And yeah, anyway, it was a really incredible moment in tennis history. But the book is absolutely outstanding, and again, I really, really recommend it. The match we watched this morning was actually between Russian Victoria Azarenka, who's won the Australian Open twice, as well, and she was up against Zhulin, I hope I'm saying that right, from China. And even though the Chinese player was, is ranked like in the 80s in the world, like she just never gave up the whole match. It was really good. And it led Jason and I actually to an interesting conversation about how a tennis match is sometimes like a novel. There's shifts in momentum, something happens in the crowd, and that changes, a player's mindset, or players, getting into each other's heads, or, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just really exciting and interesting. And so yeah, I won't dive off quite the deep end there, but I would love to know who are your favorite tennis players, and if you have any tennis books to recommend to me. I'm actually thinking of adding a tennis shelf to my Goodreads. So I would love to hear about that from you. If you are new, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Please leave a comment down below, even if it's just to say hello. If you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, you can leave an emoji or give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, I look forward to interacting with you guys. So thanks so much for watching BookTube. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.